Disclaimer, this is a video of me reacting to someone else's Five Nights at Freddy's theory. I don't always agree with them, but that has nothing to do with how I feel about them as a person or even their channel as a whole. I have and will continue to make it clear that I am a fan of this creator, and this video is simply me providing my own opinions on their theory. This video is not trying to say that I know better or am better than this creator, it's simply me seeking out other people's opinions so that I can explain the things that I agree with, the things I don't, and so I can understand these alternate opinions whether I agree or not. Anything negative I say or any negative reaction I have towards the theory is just me disagreeing, and I will always explain my point of view. Whether you agree with my stance or the creators, please just be civil towards both of us in the comments. Thank you and enjoy the video. Game theory. The hidden truth of Afton's experiments finally revealed. 20 minutes and 58 seconds long. The first word is Dacos. I think I watched the first couple seconds because, like, you know, you automatically do when you click on the video. And he was saying stuff about, like, the Steel interview, right? So, I don't know where it's going to go relating to this, but I haven't seen the interview, honestly, so maybe I should watch that. But yeah, let's go.
Dawko's Steel Wool interview reveals the true purpose of the most recent FNAF book. Even though it's set in the Pizzaplex and focuses on characters we know like Gregory and Cassie, its biggest reveals are actually based much earlier in the franchise's history, and may reveal something very interesting about our favorite Urkel killer. Hello, Internet!
Is he gonna say something about, like, the reagents, like, gas thing? Because that gas just kills you, right? At least it kills Cassie. So is he going to say that it's something to do with the fear gas, maybe? I don't know.
Game Theory, the show that's always gassing up the importance of tiny details in FNAF books. And just a little while ago, we got ourselves the third and, at this point, final choose your own adventure style FNAF book, Escape the Pizzaplex. It promised to be an exciting final adventure where we would take on the role of Cassie, who is playing hide and seek alongside our good pal Gregory as the animatronics go haywire in a prequel to Security Breach. Needless to say, I and most other FNAF theorists were excited for this one. Maybe now
and then I didn't
some of the
like
answers we've been desperately seeking to the very confusing lore of that game. But what we actually got was a lot more confounding. Like, the book is fine, but compared to the week before, Return to the Pit, even VIP, it wasn't really giving us...
I gotta be honest, I still have to read VIP. I haven't read it yet, even though it came out almost a year ago now.
Anything in the lore department. We did get to see Gregory in action in his more GGY Dr. Rabbit state, hacking the animatronics and generally being a bit of a jerk. And we got to see Cassie's friendship with both Gregory and Roxy present itself a little more. But neither of these things did what we were hoping for. I personally was hoping for answers like, how did Gregory become a slave to Glitch Trap? Or why is Cassie seen as so important to this plan? No, we got nothing of the sort, which is why it's taken me this long to come up with a theory. I've been scratching my head for ages trying to figure out what the point of this story was.
I'm gonna rewind a little bit.
Nothing of the sort.
You just said, I was just clicking on who Narrow Raven was, because I remember, because I've seen you in chat before, I think, and I remember, like, and I feel like I've recognized your name from, like, something. I don't know, though. That was just checking the channel. Anyway, I'll go back.
Which is what hoping for answers like, how did Gregory become a slave to Glitch Trap? Or why is Cassie seen as so important to this plan? But no, we got nothing of the sort, which is why it's taken me this long to come up with a theory. I've been scratching my head for ages trying to figure out what the point of this story was. What was it trying to tell us? And it wasn't really until the other week when I was chatting to friend of the channel Rye Toast about this book that suddenly it hit me. I'd been looking at this all wrong. Rather than looking at the characters we know from the franchise, I needed to look at the new character it introduced. A new kind of staff bot called the Reagent, with hoses for arms and a gas canister attached to its back that it uses to incapacitate Cassie in dozens of the book's endings. Eventually, this thing
almost
is
all of the
by
book's
either
endings.
Cassie or Roxy, depending on the ending you get. Because this guy isn't in Security Breach, so we gotta get rid of him so we don't mess up the timeline even more. But then the question Ryan and I both had was, why? Why introduce use him at all if you're just gonna have to get rid of him? Why not make it one of the other Glamrocks, or Gregory, or heck, make it the first modern appearance of the Mimic in some way? But the more I pondered and banged my head against the wall, the more I began to realize that Scott absolutely had a purpose for this character. It just wasn't to do with the current lore of the franchise. It was pointing to something much further back.
I
in the
really
franchise's
never got
history,
any
something
ideas
that we're
about what he
likely
could
to
be.
get a glimpse of in Secret of
What
the
he could be
Mimic
for.
very soon. The main thing we learn about this guy is that it has mysterious gas powers that it uses to incapacitate Cassie. Who's copying whose homework now, eh, Poppy? And so, just like with Poppy, the first thing I wanted to do to get to the bottom of this new character was to figure out what this mysterious gas actually is. Because when you call your character the reagent, that has consequences. A reagent is a real scientific term that refers to a substance or compound that is added to a system to cause a chemical reaction. And you know, if you're gonna use scientific terms to name your characters, we're gonna science the heck out of those characters. So, what do we learn about this mysterious reagent gas? Well, the most standout parts are what it does to Cassie when she encounters it. Quote, "Your eyes and throat burn. The moment you move, vertigo seizes you, and you can't seem to make your arms move right. They're too heavy, as if they're made of lead. You blink, your eyes flooded with tears. Then, everything goes dark." Cassie also mentions coughing, fuzzy vision, and dizziness in other parts of the book, so that's a pretty extensive list of symptoms to work with. Immediately, my mind went to something like carbon monoxide, the silent killer. It's a very common but very dangerous gas that, when breathed in, ticks a number of our symptom boxes. Blurry vision, dizziness, loss of muscle control, and while it isn't often associated with coughing, that is a symptom that can occur in certain individuals. Eventually, all of this leads to a loss of consciousness and death. Plus, it is used scientifically as a reagent, so we're off to a pretty good start. But it's not quite a perfect match. Carbon monoxide doesn't cause your eyes or throat to burn, hence it's called the silent killer, because you often can breathe it in and not know it's affecting you until it's too late. It's also called the silent killer for another big reason that doesn't work with our mysterious gas: its odor, or more specifically, its lack of odor. You cannot smell carbon monoxide when it's leaking, which is why you should always have a
the detector. So like, it's like you don't realize that anything is wrong until like you're gonna die from it anyway.
carbon monoxide alarm installed in your home to sense it for you. Now, I wouldn't put it past Fazbear Entertainment to ignore this crucial safety step, but Cassie does have something to say about the smell of this particular gas. Quote again, "A noxious cloud follows in its wake. The thick, sharp scent of chemicals fills your nostrils." It actually repeats that point about it smelling like chemicals a few times throughout the book, which means it cannot be carbon monoxide. With the smell being associated with chemicals and the reagent being responsible for, quote, cleaning the pizzaplex of organic matter, I wondered if this could be something like chlorine gas. Chlorine is generally used as a disinfectant for things like swimming pools, but in gas form, while it can be used as a reagent, it's also incredibly dangerous. Just like carbon monoxide, it can cause lightheadedness, dizziness, blurry vision, and muscle weakness. But it also has the added effects we're looking for, like the burning sensation in the eyes and throat, which leads to coughing and watering eyes, and it has a strong chemical smell, typically reminding people of cleaning products like bleach. It also has another quality that carbon monoxide lacks: you can see it. In that previous quote from Cassie, we learn that she's not only able to smell the gas, but see it. Quote again, "A noxious cloud follows in its wake." Sadly, we don't get any descriptors in the book about its color or anything.
See, the thing is, what I'm wondering is, is he gonna find a gas that it makes sense to be, or is he gonna be like, it's probably not a gas that is like scientifically normally used, it's probably just the gas from the fear experiments. The thing is, if he's gonna say that it is the same type of gas, it would be kind of weird, because that gas in Didophobia is something that makes you see things. It like affects your brain. It's a fear chemical, kind of like Scarecrow's fear gas, right? But the reagent's gas just kills you. And that's kind of the point of it. Like, it's literally made to kill all organic matter. So, it would be kind of weird for it to be the same gas and then not do that to Cassie. Like, you could just say that that's what happens after, but the fact that it's a game over indicates that she dies there, not that she just, like, experiences the fear experiments. Because I feel like there would be at least one ending where she goes through something like that, if it were to be that. Like, there would be something in the book to indicate that, other than just being a gas, if that makes sense, you know?
In the book about its color or anything, that would be way too helpful. But the fact that it's visible at all is important for us to bear in mind. And chlorine gas is visible, usually a yellowish green color. So why is this not the end of the video? Chlorine gas seems to be a perfect solution.
Because that doesn't mean anything yet.
The problem is that I can't get this clip from Rytoast's stream out of my head.
The tanks in the scuba room, they are labeled nitrogen.
But these gas canisters aren't just anywhere. They're in the basement of the Pizzaplex. This nitrogen is being used somewhere in the Pizzaplex. And the only thing we've really seen using gas in this building is the reagents. That means that the most likely suspect for the gas being used within Fazbear is a nitrogen-based gas, which, as you can tell by the name, chlorine is not. So, gotta try again. We need a gas that is visible, smells of chemicals, burns the eyes and throat, causes dizziness, heavy limbs, passing out, be nitrogen-based, and be some kind of reagent. This is becoming way more complicated than I intended. Who'd have thought that a game about a possessed animatronic...
The question is that nitrogen actually for the Pizzaplex, or is it related to something down there? Because it depends what, like, theories you believe, because... Personally, I think that the FNAF 6 building is like a repurposed Fredbear's Family Diner, meaning that FNAF 4 and sister location is also under the Pizzaplex. So technically, you could say that the reagents gas is something completely different, and that nitrogen-based gas is part of like the fear gas, right? It could be something like that. You could say they're the same one, but I just don't see any indication that they're the same one. Like I mean the fear gas and the reagent gas. So, like, I could be wrong. I'm just saying I don't know.
But I'm nothing if not determined. And so, I did what any logical, sane person would do in this situation. I looked up every single nitrogen-based gas that has ever existed and compared it to our symptoms. I'd like to say it was fun, but even the nerd in me was
probably a lot of
yes,
those.
It was made a little easier thanks to this video's sponsor, Opera. Thanks to Opera, I was able to use... Where did all that research take me? Well, as I crossed off options from the list, I was left with only one possibility. Something I'd never heard of. Dinitrogen tetroxide. It has a sharp and pungent smell of chemical I've never heard of. Dinitrogen tetroxide.
What is this?
It has a sharp and pungent smell of chemicals. If breathed in, it can lead to every symptom we've mentioned. As the name suggests, it's nitrogen-based, and while it is by default colorless, dinitrogen tetroxide has a fun little quirk that solves that problem. It exists in a permanent state of equilibrium with another gas, nitrogen dioxide. Dinitrogen tetroxide literally cannot exist without nitrogen dioxide, because both chemicals share a reversible chemical reaction. Dinitrogen tetroxide breaks apart into nitrogen dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide molecules combine to create dinitrogen tetroxide. And this reaction is happening constantly, not only creating a weird chemical concoction, which is exactly how the book describes this substance, by the way, but it also changes the color to a reddish brown. And if that wasn't enough of a clincher, dinitrogen tetroxide has one other very interesting effect. Much like the other gases we've mentioned, it is a reagent. It helps create chemical reactions between a number of different compounds. But the type of reaction that caught my attention was that dinitrogen tetroxide can react with a number of different metals to form what are called metal nitrates. And these can then be used in future reactions to combine the metal compounds with carbon-based organic compounds. Now, where have I heard of that kind of combination before? Oh, that's right. Remnant.
Remnant?
Yes. In this universe,
I need to listen to that again. What?
The reaction that caught my attention was that dinitrogen tetroxide can react with a number of different metals to form what are called metal nitrates. And these can then be used in future reactions to combine the metal compounds with carbon-based organic compounds. Now, where have I heard of that kind of combination before? Oh, that's right. Remnant.
I mean, remnant is just like
Yes,
soul
in
energy,
this
and it
universe,
like
the
is
soul is
a good
tangible
thing.
thing that exists.
Like,
It's not just some
metal's like a good-
ethereal thing. It physically is attached to the
The hell's the
metal.
word? It's a good like What is the word for a conductor? Why can't I think of that? Why couldn't I think of that?
It's not just some ethereal thing. It physically is attached to the metal, and when you melt down that metal, it remains attached, which led to the creation of the fun times. The soul is a real thing. And if it's a real thing for us organic, carbon-based life forms, then it too could be considered organic matter. Meaning that this gas, the reagent, it's all part of turning these kids into remnant, just like Rye theorized about in a recent video. It's also worth considering that Rye found these canisters in the scooping room of Ruin, and the scoop blueprints we got from FNAF 6 revealed to us that the scoop was designed to inject remnant into animatronics, or people. For these tanks to be here, in that same room, it feels like they have to be connected. And so the remnant for the scoop and these nitrogen-based canisters are also connected. And when you think about it, it actually helps explain a lot about what the Mimic is trying to do.
I mean, maybe, but I feel like it's kind of stretching it a little bit to, like, just say that that is I mean, yes, the scooper in the sister location scooper is it does hold remnant and injects remnant, but as for like the nitrogen thing, I feel like it would be kind of weird for that itself to be connected to the remnant, because yes, metal can like connect to like that gas or whatever it is, like the nitrogen thing, but I feel like that nitrogen having to do with the remnant itself is a thing. Like, I feel like it's more like, you know how you can have like, you know how you can not really be that good of friends with somebody, but you have a mutual friend, so the three of you will hang out together, but then if that mutual friend disappears, you'd have nothing to talk about? I feel like it's like that. It's like metal connects the nitrogen and the remnant, but without the metal, they have nothing to do with each other. That's how I feel like it kind of is more like, you know?
In Security Breach, during the bad ending, we learnt of 9 missing kids, but we've had no idea what happened to them. Now, thanks to Ruin in the books, we know that the Mimic has been copying Afton and his murderous tendencies. Like in VIP, we see the Mimic program present itself as a pig mascot and lead kids into the back room to be killed, which is pretty familiar. But what we're talking about today allows us to take it one step further. The Mimic isn't just copying Afton's killings, he's trying to recreate the missing children's incident in its entirety, converting their souls into remnants just like Afton did in the games that the Mimic was partially trained on. Now, listen, I get that all of this might seem like a stretch. Believe me, I do. Referring to the soul as organic matter feels weird, and even then, there's
I don't think it's that the soul itself is organic, but I think that it obviously connects to metal, right? I don't think that the soul itself would cause any like chemical reaction with metal. I think it just latches onto it. So then like if you melt down the metal chemically and like scientifically, it's still only metal, but it has more properties just because of the spirit inside it. So it's not that the soul itself is a physical thing. It's still just a spiritual thing that has nothing to do with reality or physics or chemistry. It's just there, you know? So, I get what he's trying to say, but I don't think that the remnant itself is physical. So it's like the remnant and the nitrogen thing, the dinitrogen tetroxide and the nitrogen dioxide, they wouldn't have anything, those gases wouldn't have anything to do with the remnant itself. It's just like the metal bridges the gap between them, I guess. So, like, them being in the presence of a scooper is cool. Like, that works, but they don't have anything to literally do with each other. They just have something to... They're just both attached to metal, basically.
Tetroxide would work as a reagent for that specific compound. At the end of the day, Scott isn't a scientist. He's a fiction writer. But at this point, he knows that we theorists will look at the real-life comparisons to find our answers. And as time goes on, it's become clear that he's trying to work with that and make the series feel more grounded. We've moved away from spiritually possessed animatronics to an AI villain. He got rid of sound illusion discs and swapped them for hallucinogenic gas. And that is what I think this this mysterious gas is really about. It's him trying to find a way to more believably ground the series, retroactively explaining part of Afton's scientific process, so that when the grounded AI villain tries to mimic him, it's not having to suddenly go back to the old sci-fi and paranormal tricks, undoing all of that progress. It's not a perfect one-to-one because the kind of thing he needs just doesn't exist. But what does exist is close enough to make his point. However, even with the answer to this gas question somewhat solved,
I get
as I
that,
sat
I
there
think.
staring into the void that is my FNAF whiteboard,
What
I
if Edwin is
remembered that
Gregory?
that was only part of what I set out to solve. Sure, this has been a fun experiment trying to identify the gas, and it's even more fun to find its connections to Remnant. But that in and of itself hasn't really changed how we look at this franchise.
Yeah, it doesn't
Outside
really
of the
do
idea
anything.
that the Mimic is now creating Remnant, not just killing kids, which is fine.
Which I already kind of believed, because, like, in Burn Trap, you can see flesh, like, kind of growing over him. So it's like, maybe the Mimic made a Remnant, like, with those kids that Vanny killed, and just using that Remnant, then, like, kind of regenerated whatever corpse is on him, right? Is on Burn Trap. So it's just like, I already assumed that he was making Remnant. Like, that makes sense, but I don't think that gas thing really changes anything. So I just want to see, like, where he's going, because there's 7 minutes left.
But it's not exactly mind-blowing. It doesn't help us understand where this franchise is going. And despite all of this effort, I didn't feel any closer to actually solving the mystery I set out to. Why did Scott introduce us to a brand new character who, in the end, suffers from the classic prequel issue of having to be gone before the end of the book because he wasn't in security breach? Legitimately, at this point, I was at a loss. I was ready to throw this entire theory out and just act like the book didn't even exist. That was until Dorco's interview with Evan Lampe, the creative director of Secret of
If I was
the
a
Mimic.
lamp.
How carefully are you putting the books in consideration of Secret of the Mimic?
We've actually been talking about making this game for a long time, and we were developing the game kind of while these books are coming out. It's interesting to work kind of in dual mediums.
Secret of the Mimic was being developed alongside the books. They are
Yeah.
directly influencing each other. Once again, I'd been looking at this all wrong. Escape the Pizzaplex appeared to be about security breach, but in actuality, its story is supposed to tie into Secret of the Mimic. So
I think that's.
went back
I don't
and
think that's what he's saying. I think he was saying Tales from the Pizzaplex, not as much Escape the Pizzaplex.
the trailer over and over again, looking for something that connected this game to the weird reagent we've been analyzing. And guys, I think I found something big. In this trailer, there is a new character, Dolly the nurse. Well, I say new. We've actually heard from Dolly before. During the first aid minigame in Help Wanted 2, there's a voice that speaks to us over the intercom that, in the game files, is referred to as Carnival Nurse.
That's also
as
actually in the
Fall Fest,
subtitles.
which takes place in the 1970s.
Yeah,
just
I made
like
that
Secret
connection
of
too,
the
yeah.
Mimic. And now we get to see her firsthand in all.
I mean, I'm not sure that she's literally the same nurse, but I do think that they're meant to be connected, or like the Carnival nurse in Help Wanted 2, that's meant to be like a future version of her. But they could very well just be the same animatronic.
of a creepy
If the Carnival
doll-like
nurse is an
glory.
animatronic
But
at
tell
all,
me,
and not
do
just
you
a
notice anything familiar about her? The thing on her back might just look like a normal backpack, but coming from the backpack are a pair of hoses. Hoses that then connect to Dolly's
As soon as he brought up Dolly, I was like, oh yeah, there's
just
a gas tank
the
on her back.
reagent. The reason we are being shown the reagent
Is
now,
it?
just like the
Is it on her hands? Yeah, kind of.
reagent. The reason we are being shown the reagent now is because we were being prepped for the new character that was about to be introduced, Dolly, who has a similar design feature and therefore a similar function. And that connection has some wild implications.
I mean,
because
maybe.
if the reagent is using a gas that helps prepare human kids for remnant creation like we suspect, that would mean that Dolly is doing the same thing. In 1970, the
I'm sorry,
agent
what?
is using a gas has some wild implications. Because if the reagent is using a gas that helps prepare human kids for remnant creation like we suspect, that would mean that Dolly is doing the same.
I mean, I don't think that's what the reagent is for. Like, yes, it kills kids, but I don't think that it's literally meant to be for the remnant thing. Like, I think he's literally just trying to kill anything.
same thing.
That's in the Pizzaplex.
1979.
I don't know.
What? How? Wow, Remnant came up.
Also, not necessarily. Like, they don't literally have to be the same. Like, they don't literally have to be the same function. Like, sure, they could both have gas, but that doesn't mean that Dolly's gas is there for the same purpose as the reagent. Like, if the reagent is there for Remnant, which he doesn't have to be, but even if he is, that doesn't mean that Dolly has to be too. Like, Dolly's gas could serve a completely different purpose.
About as the result of Afton's experimenting with the animatronics after his son died and he committed the missing children's incident. Now I'm saying it exists 4 years before his son even died? That can't possibly be the case, right? And honestly, at first, I thought so too. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this change actually lines up with a number of other predictions we've made recently about the start of the FNAF timeline. In my first Secret of the Mimic theory, I spoke a lot about Fall Fest, Fazbear's circus that ran throughout the 70s and 80s. Thanks to some tweets from the developers and my love of Shakespearean theatre, I was able to infer that Charlie's death and the missing children's incident were not Afton's first rodeo. He'd actually been killing kids for a long time. But what if it wasn't just the killing that had been going on for a long time, but the experimentation as well? In earlier parts of the franchise, it felt like Afton was always the businessman, while Henry was the animatronic genius. But as time went on, we were shown that actually William was also a bit of a scientific genius himself.
Well, I think he always was. It was just that for Freddy's, like, Henry was the primary one that was making the animatronics, and Afton just had his own thing going on.
However, in the fourth closet, he tells us that there is a crucial difference between him and Henry's designs, something he called the spark of life. Henry was able to make his animatronics feel alive, something Afton was unable to achieve on his own. But he was desperate to figure it out. So why wouldn't he begin experimenting, trying to figure out how to get life into his animatronic creations? Back in my initial theory, I didn't really have much of an explanation as to why Afton was killing all those years ago, other than he was just a bad man. But this would actually give it...
I still feel like he doesn't have to have been killing that long. Like, he definitely could have been, but I also don't think that it would have been for Remnant, because I think the reason that, like, because he's looking for Remnant because he wants immortality. And I think that if he wanted immortality all the way back then, it would be kind of weird. I mean, it wouldn't be weird for him to want immortality all the way back then, but there hasn't really been any indication yet, and this could obviously be the indication. I just don't see enough evidence for it, because like I said, the Dolly thing, her gas doesn't have to be for the same thing that the reagent's gas is for, and that's even if the reagent's gas is for anything to do with Remnant. Like, it doesn't have to be, but even if it is, Dolly's doesn't have to be either, you know?
Some level of purpose. He's not killing aimlessly or for fun. He's doing it because he needs to beat Henry. I also theorized recently that Afton always had an accomplice in his murders. Based on the inclusion of a plush baby luring us to be killed by a yellow rabbit in Return to the Pit, which took place in 1985, I concluded that we were being shown that Baby has always been there to assist Afton, even as far back as Fall Fest. I wondered if maybe Secret of the Mimic would reveal what that looked like, and well, Dolly could be the one I was looking for. She does have some very similar design features to Baby, from the Funtime split face to the arm joints being almost identical to Baby's. Even the medical symbol in the middle of her midsection looks similar to the fan that Baby has in her midsection. Plus, they're both voiced by Heather Masters. It's a small thing that we can't put too much weight on, but I figured it was worth mentioning. Dolly would also be...
I mean, I don't remember exactly what he said in that Circus Baby theory, but I remember not agreeing with it, but I could kind of see that, though. Like, that's a decent idea.
Perfect accomplice for Afton during the Fall Fest Carnival era. He'd be able to hide all his murders in a medical tent out of sight where regular people aren't able to go. He'd have all the medical tools he could possibly need, and in 1979, no one's gonna question the nitrogen gas canisters, because nitrous oxide, i.e. laughing gas, was still used in medical practices until the mid-80s. And the cherry on top of all of this is that if I'm right, it massively changes Afton's entire motivation during during the original series of games, and the oh so famous line that he gives his son before he dies: "I will put you back together." This line has often been used as Afton's main driving force. From here, he would go on to kill some kids and learn about the secrets of Remnant. But I remember when we were writing our Ultimate Timeline, we kinda had to fudge the evidence a bit when it came to how he knew that killing kids would be the solution. The best we could come up with is that he'd seen it in characters like Baby or the puppets, all of which makes that line more of a hope, a desperate father just trying to save his son.
Yeah, I've always
Now,
thought it
if
was
the Remnant
Charlotte, and I
experiments
still
have been
do.
going on since the
But
70s,
personally, I think that Charlotte died before the bite victim, and I don't think that the bite victim was Afton's motivation at all. So, yeah. But, like, that doesn't really affect the theory overall, though.
this line becomes a certainty. The reason Afton knew he'd have to kill the missing children and put them into suits is because, by this point, he'd have some pretty solid understanding of how it worked. He'd been experimenting with souls and possession and remnant for the last 4 years. When he sees his dying son, he tells him it's going to be okay, and that he'll put him back together because he knows it's possible. He just needed some more test subjects like he'd had all the way back in 1979. But in just over a month, the day of reckoning is coming. Secret of the Mimic is finally going to release, and the past 2 years of theorizing is going to be put
You say just
to the
over a month? He
test.
releases
There is
less
something special
after
about
there's
that.
less than a month left.
So make sure you subscribe
Alright.
so you don't miss that announcement. But until then, guys, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching. World premiere on Game Theory. FNAF's
What?
main villain has been keeping...
Alright, well, I don't really agree with the idea, but, like, I kind of get where he's coming from in a way. I think there's some decent stuff in the theory, but I think that overall it's kind of just, like, a little bit of a stretch in a lot of ways. But, yeah. That was all for this reaction.